The film opens on a remote tropical island where a young woman named Jennifer Reming, known as Jen, washes ashore after a violent storm capsizes the boat she was on. Exhausted, disoriented, and drenched in seawater, Jen stumbles upon her friend Brad, who also made it to the island but is gravely injured. Despite her best efforts to save him, Brad succumbs to his wounds, leaving Jen completely alone. In her desperation for shelter and safety, Jen begins exploring the island. As she surveys her surroundings, she discovers remnants of past inhabitants, old abandoned belongings that suggest a family once lived in this isolated place. Overcome with grief, Jen covers Brad's body with leaves and seeks shelter before darkness falls. The night brings another storm, leaving Jen isolated and terrified. The following morning, Jen searches the shoreline for food and spots a fish washed ashore, but it appears to have been attacked by some creature. The tranquil island, which Jen initially hoped might be a safe haven, now seems to harbor a dark and deadly secret. Although she gathers fish for a meal, her appetite is gone. Going through her belongings, Jen is devastated to find that her notebooks are ruined by seawater. She finds a photograph of her boyfriend Lucas and reminisces about the life she had before the island. As Jen continues to explore, she stumbles upon graves of the island's previous inhabitants. Inspired by this discovery, she digs a grave and buries Brad's body in the sand. That night, she lights a fire and prepares a meal. The next day, Jen's solitude turns even more ominous when she makes a horrifying discovery. Brad's grave has been disturbed, his body gone, with a gruesome trail of blood leading into the sea. Fearful of what lies ahead, Jen crafts a weapon from a stick and stone. That night, although she lights a fire, her sleep is plagued by fear. Determined to survive, Jen swims out to retrieve her luggage, which has resurfaced. During this, she encounters something far more terrifying than she could have imagined. A massive, ominous hole in the ocean floor, suggesting something lurking beneath the water. Back on land, Jen unpacks her luggage and is relieved to find warmer clothing. That night, she hears the distant whirring of a plane and desperately fires a flare gun, hoping to be rescued, but her efforts are in vain. As the light from the flare fades, Jen's worst fears come true. A monstrous sea creature, a giant humanoid figure, emerges from the water. Narrowly avoiding detection by hiding, Jen is struck by the terrifying realization that she is not alone on this island, and the creature is anything but benign. The following day, Jen's resolve and resourcefulness are put to the test as she tries to create a flotation device from a suitcase and life jackets in a bid to escape the creature. Her plan fails, leaving her frustrated and infuriated. That night, Jen hides in a log of wood, but the creature, now bolder in its pursuit, attacks the log. Jen's fear intensifies, but she remains silently hidden until the creature gives up. The next day, Jen emerges from her hiding place, ready to face whatever comes her way as she struggles to survive another day. Jen begins by catching small fish and using them as bait to lure larger fish. She uses the larger fish as bait for the creature, hoping to study the creature from a hidden vantage point. The following day, she discovers that the fish bait has disappeared, escalating her fears even further. In response, she sharpens her weapon, preparing for another potential encounter with the creature. Her terror intensifies when the mutilated, bisected corpse of her friend Zach washes ashore, a grim reminder of the fate that could await her. Driven by desperation, Jen decides to use Zach's remains as bait, hoping to observe the creature more closely and devise a plan to defeat it. Despite the horror of the situation, her strategy succeeds, and she manages to catch a glimpse of the terrifying creature. The next day, Jen prepares for the encounter by constructing a makeshift hammock high in the trees, intending to keep a safe distance between her and the creature. However, as night falls and the creature emerges, it senses Jen's presence and begins to tear down her hammock. Acting quickly, Jen flees, with the creature in close pursuit. The creature, faster in water than on land, quickly gains on her. In a desperate act of self-defense, Jen stabs the creature with a sharpened stick, wounding it. Though she narrowly escapes, Jen realizes that her struggle is far from over. The following day brings a glimmer of hope as Jen spots a life raft approaching the shore from a distance. Swimming out to it, she is reunited with her boyfriend, Lucas Griffin, and their mutual friend Mia Reed, who have also washed ashore. Jen offers them refreshments and warns them about the creature, urging them to flee the island before nightfall. She recounts the deaths of Brad and Zach, leaving Mia devastated by the loss of Brad. Jen comforts Mia, who is reeling from the news, and informs Lucas of her plan to head west and leave the island, borrowing his pocket knife to search for food. Tensions quickly escalate when Jen discovers Lucas' pocket knife covered in blood, leading her to suspect that Lucas may know more about the creature and Zach's fate than he's letting on. Returning with food, Jen is determined to leave the island and tries to convince Lucas and Mia to escape in the lifeboat before it's too late. However, her warnings are dismissed as the product of trauma, loneliness, or madness. Lucas, increasingly frustrated, snaps at Jen and refuses to leave the island. As Lucas and Mia remain adamant about staying, Jen's fear and frustration reach a boiling point. Desperate to save herself, Jen attempts to flee alone, but Lucas and Mia chase her down and forcibly throw her out of the raft. A physical struggle ensues, and in a moment of panic, Mia knocks Jen unconscious with a boat paddle. When Jen regains consciousness, she finds herself tied up, helpless against the island's dangers. Mia, growing more skeptical of Jen's mental state, reveals Jen's history of fabricating lies, further eroding the trust between the three survivors. Jen pleads with Mia to untie her, desperately trying to convince her of the danger they face, but Mia remains unconvinced. Meanwhile, Lucas, increasingly distant and secretive, returns and refuses to release Jen. Before Jen can fully process the situation, the sea creature launches a violent attack, dragging Mia into the water despite Lucas's frantic attempts to save her. In the chaos, Jen frees herself from her bindings and manages to rescue Lucas. The next day, Lucas and Jen make a desperate bid to escape the island together in the life raft. However, Jen raises suspicions when she discovers the raft's interior drenched in blood, presumably Zach's. The suffocating sense of impending doom weighs heavily on them as they set off, but the sea monster has no intention of letting them leave. It viciously attacks the raft, tearing through its base and seizing Jen, dragging her down toward the ominous black hole in the ocean floor. In a last-ditch effort to survive, Jen remembers Lucas's penknife and stabs the creature. The creature releases her, but isn't finished yet. It returns to the raft, this time pulling Lucas to his death. Once again alone, Jen realizes that running is no longer an option. She resolves to confront the monster head-on, determined to end the terror once and for all. Before setting her final trap, she documents her experiences in a journal, detailing the creature's behavior and her survival strategies. This act of recording her story is a poignant moment, reflecting Jen's hope that, if she fails, her journal might help any future castaways who find themselves on the island. As night falls, Jen puts her plan into motion. She lures the sea monster into a circle of wood and grass, setting it ablaze in a desperate attempt to weaken the creature. Armed with sharpened branches and the bones of the family the monster had killed, Jen engages in a brutal fight. Both her and the creature sustain severe injuries, but Jen's determination fuels her resolve. She stabs the creature multiple times, and though it chases her to the shoreline, its injuries prove too severe. The creature collapses, and Jen seizes the moment to decapitate it, ensuring it can no longer terrorize anyone else. In the aftermath, battered and exhausted, Jen severs the creature's head. She carries it as proof of the horrors she endured on the island. The movie closes with Jen, once more alone, limping toward the raft, her resilience and resourcefulness having secured her survival.